All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode here. I'm your host, Dr. Brett Scott. Today, we're talking with Ryan Montgomery, who is a professional ultramarathon runner, about what is wrong with his mind, I think, maybe, and what would convince you to run a 100-mile race regularly and very fast, too. Before we get into that, I want to let you all know that this podcast is sponsored by Ascent Protein. We love Ascent Protein for its ingredients, its very good sourcing of where they're getting their product from. And it's something we carry in our gym and PT clinic because we believe in the product. We really like it. And the newest flavor they have is the coffee protein, which everyone seems to be loving. So if you have any questions about that, let us know. Or come grab some at Architect Fitness in Tingsboro. Nonetheless, Ryan Montgomery. He is a professional ultra marathon runner, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to work with him and treat him through some Achilles pain and tendinopathy. And we wanted to have you on just to kind of talk about is ultra marathon running something you would recommend people try?
All right, end of podcast is I'm here to convince people about ultra running. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's so nice to see you again, Brett. Happy to talk all things ultra running today.
Yeah, so what did get you into ultra running? Like, how did you get here?
You know, I feel like whenever people ask that question, it's like so easy to index on like a single moment. So I really think it's been a series of moments, but I do think there are some key moments in my life that have been catalysts for why I'm an ultra runner today. One was when I was a freshman in high school. I had just moved from Alaska to Oregon. And in that town that I was living in Alaska, there was this marathon, and a big part of the community would show up to this marathon, either do a relay or volunteer. And so when I moved, I said to myself that I wanted to come back and run this marathon. And by the way, I'm a freshman in high school. I'm 15 years old, and I signed up for this marathon. And that freshman year of high school, my high school cross-country coach, she said, Ryan, if you do this marathon, you're going to injure yourself. You're going to jeopardize your running career. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Like, I really strongly advise you not to do that. And if you know anything about me, like, you should like be validating me, and I kind of view those types of framings of challenges as truly a challenge. And I kind of took that and said, like, well, I'm going to show you, and like, I'm going to do this. So I did the marathon, and I think that having that experience, number one, was incredibly hard because I was definitely not trained for it, but it taught me so much about like the human body and the psyche around doing long distance running. And I think that curiosity and that exploration in long distance running got me really excited. And then another catalyst event was the next year, I got introduced to this organization called Impossible to Possible. And it's founded by this well-known ultra runner named Ray Zahab. And what his organization does is they take youth on these running expeditions all over the globe. And the whole point is to inspire people to go beyond their perceived limits. So now I'm 16 and I get accepted into this running expedition in Bolivia. I applied for it, they accepted me, and we ran 120 miles over the course of 5 days. And again, I'm just like a baby at this point in my running career. And it was so hard the first day. I was like, how are we actually going to keep running the next day and run a marathon the next day? And what was interesting from that experience is that my body actually adapted to the stress of running over the course of those 5-6 days, running back to back. And so that was like a really validating experience of like, oh my gosh, the human body is capable of doing so much more than what we perceive it to do. And really a lot of it is the mental limitation that we put on ourselves. And so I think that opened up a can of worms of like, oh my gosh, ultra running is like this crazy playground of mental performance, mental fortitude, pushing limitations, and like really pushing our body to extremes. And so I think those were the catalysts for my career.
Interesting. And then, like, so when did you do your first 100-mile race?
First 100 miler was in 2017. I ran this race called the Wasatch.
Okay. And how many 100-mile races have you done since then?
So as of today, I've done 18.
So that's, how many is that a year? Like three a year, basically, almost something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, of those 100 milers, most of them are 100 milers, but some were 24-hour track races. I've done those where it's over 100 miles. I've done a 200-mile race. I've done a 135-mile race. So varying degrees above 100, I guess.
Yeah. And so what is it that draws you in to keep doing something like this? Because it's a great physical demand on the body, but like I've the furthest I've run is 13.1. But even that in training, like there was one time I like somebody was asking me the other day about like the runner's high, like because I still run recreationally and avidly, but more for health, not competition right now. But like, oh, you know, I love that runner's high. I was like, have you gotten like a real runner's high? Because like there's that euphoric, like there was one point I felt like I was on mushrooms or something, and the road got narrow and windy when I knew it wasn't, and I was dialed in, and my performance like boosted. But there's still this like mental toughness that comes with that. So like, what draws you to doing these things?
So are you saying that like you're drawn to like the runner's high and like you relate to that?
No,
Oh, okay.
I got into I competitively ran one race because I had gotten into running for weight loss purposes, lost some weight, was super hungover one day, did a 4.5 mile run. My dad said he'd pick me up if I called him to come grab me. And then I called him when I was 4.5 miles out, and he was like, "Oh, we went to lunch. Like, let me know when you get back to the house and shower and change, and I'll come pick you up." I was like, "I guess I'm running 9 miles today." So I ran 9 miles at a 1% on my Whoop recovery. And I was like, well, if I can do that, I might as well train and do a half marathon. And then I got a runner's high in the middle of that because I was burnt out from weightlifting at the time and just wanted to kind of prep. But running 100 miles plus is a whole different feat. So like, what is it about that you love? What draws you to it?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head of like how my approach is probably different than other people. My rationale, my why, the drive for ultra running comes at a place of curiosity and learning. Like every time I show up to one of these races, I'm not thinking about, oh, I'm ready to like, I'm excited to like conquer this. That is true from I'm a competitor, and that is a fact that is there. But the main thing that is driving me to want to keep doing this is like this exploration side of me. I kind of view ultra running as like going out for an adventure where my mind is like, oh, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see what challenges I face. I'm excited to see how I handle that. I'm excited to see what I learn from this experience that either helps me better understand myself, helps me become a better athlete, helps me better connect to the community, help me better connect to volunteers or the race itself. So that's like this exploration mode is like truly what's driving me. And I think that's very different than what you were describing, or a lot of people whom I coach. I'm also a running coach. Is people get into running with this mentality of seeing it as a means to an end to achieve specific outcomes, whether that's like, oh, I just like want to lose weight, or I want to get this 5K time. But those things aren't like lifestyle driven. They're just outputs of running. And I don't feel like those are like long lasting driving things. that are going to keep you into, a sport, for example. So it needs to be deeper
Yeah.
than that. And I think that's why I've done so many of these, is because it's so deeply rooted in like exploration and learning about myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's interesting for me. Like one of my things. So I started initially because I had done genetic testing, and the
Mm.
genetic testing came back that said like if you want to lose weight, you need to be doing like an hour and a half of cardio. So I was doing like I worked up to like doing like half-hour runs, and that was working. And then I had that experience with my dad didn't want to pick me up, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to train for this and see what I can do, just because it was the opposite. I'm a strength athlete. My sport is maybe 5 seconds of a lift from beginning to end. You have six opportunities on the platform, and that's it. You're out there a total of maybe 2 minutes. So I was like, let me go the complete opposite direction of this and see how I can do and change and adapt. And I also want to always better understand my athletes and patients and stuff too. So, and just, yeah, self exploration with learning. But then I found there was something for me, it was like very primal about
Mm.
being conditioned physically to just go out and only have to depend on myself to get from point A to point B in a long distance. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever felt that way.
Well,
Like,
when you say, I'm curious to understand what you mean by primal. Whether that I'm assuming when you say primal, it's like something inherent as I guess as humans. Um, but how I interpret that, because I also have like a primal perspective in ultra running, but it's more about like being connected to myself. Like I think Brett, you've talked about this a lot, that systemic health issues, because you treat so many different patients, like health issues come from us like not being connected to ourselves. Like we've lost that relationship. Like we've lost that relationship with food. We've lost that relationship with our bodies. Like we're not reflective enough to really understand ourselves. And put yourself in 100-mile race. Every vulnerability and adequacy thing that you're not aware of is going to come to the surface. And that's, for me, really exciting, because I have this very intertwined, close, intimate relationship to myself. And that, for me, is like very primal. Like I just know when something's off, and I know when things are right. And I have that fine tuning of my body that like a lot of people don't have. And that only
yeah,
comes from literally showing up 20 hours a week running, and just that there's like a constant feedback loop with your body when I'm doing that, right?
yeah. Yeah, for me, it's just like knowing I have the readiness to like, I could go out and have to run, 5, 10 miles and being able to do that. And like knowing I can do that versus knowing I am not physically capable of doing that. I don't know. There's something, it's like, it was a good feeling to have to be like, yeah, I am conditioned to do this versus not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really it for me. But, so you do one of these races, right? I'm curious too. Like I've listened and heard from some other ultra runners. Like, what is like the come down effect for you after a race? Like, can you sleep after? Like, there's got to be such a giant hormonal, like, like you manic depressive state of like, there's all these hormones and stuff, and then you're done. Like, what happens to you after a race?
Okay. Well, I just ran a 100-mile race a week and a half ago.
I saw
So
your
I
picture
can
of you
tell you,
sleeping like with your ass hanging out and like on the pavement or something.
yeah, that was the day after, by the way. So
Oh, okay.
I can tell you exactly what happened immediately after the race. And like and this is, you know, pretty common across my 100-mile races, but you know, this race took me 15 hours and 53 minutes, I think. And I finished just around like 8 p.m. that day. And so for nearly 16 hours, I'm literally just eating maltodextrin and caffeine and just sugar all day. And, stomach is destroyed. My legs are destroyed. I'm exhausted. I've also been running in like 100-degree heat for like half the day. So like there's the context. That night, my body was so destroyed. I got when we got back to my house where I was sleeping that night, my crew ordered In and Out. I know people on the East Coast might not know In and Out, but it's
No,
like a
we know it.
burger
We know it.
place. Oh, you know
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
If you're on the East Coast, sorry, I know you don't have In and Out, but it's just like burgers and fries. And it took me 90 minutes just to like try to eat the damn burger. Like I'm just like slowly chewing my burger because my stomach was so upset and I knew I had like a calorie deficit. So I'm like trying to force feed myself and like not throw up. And this is now like 10 p.m. My stomach is generally pretty destroyed and I just feel like nauseous for, until the next day. And then because I'm running on adrenaline and caffeine and just sugar in my system, I think I got probably like 2 hours of sleep that night. And also because my muscles are just like overwhelmed. Um, I don't think I slept with any covers because I felt like my body was like on fire. So yeah, that's the night that the night of 100 miler is never great. But I think was able to get maybe like 6 7 hours the following night. So hopefully that paints a picture of like the carnage that comes not only from 100 mile race but also like doing it competitively.
Yeah, because I mean, I watched or looked at some of your photos you posted too. So like, yeah, you were drinking like soda. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
but yeah,
Mhm.
what is the deal with soda? Because and I know some people like Coca Cola, ginger ale. I saw you had. What is what is the reasoning for something like a soda?
So this is a me thing. I don't know if other trail runners do this as much as I do, but you know, for a 100 mile race and doing one really fast competitively, I've trained my gut to pretty much fuel just on gels and sport drink like Scratch or other products like that, which are primarily fructose, maltodextrin, and other simple sugars. Um, Generally, when I do this, at some point in a 100 miler, my stomach usually gives up, or I just have fatigue from the flavors. That the only thing I crave is soda, specifically Coca Cola. And so this particular race, I had some extreme like GI distress, like in the middle of the race, and I quickly pivoted to just drinking Coca Cola and water. I usually like dilute it in my bottles. And I call this like my running on fumes moment of my 100 milers, where I'm just getting to the finish line. I'm running on fumes. Coca Cola is going to get me there. So that's usually what happens. And I think like every time I've done a 100 miler, I usually get to that point.
Okay, so there's no like physiology behind it. Just like I am craving this and I need
No,
to have it. Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
it's just like I need to get some type of fuel in me. And so that was the intention.
Yeah, and I'm sure. Do you think there's something too about like it's like coffee for a lot of people? Like they have to have their coffee in the morning. It's just like or just like this is gonna make my day less shitty when you're 60 miles in. Is that the thing? It's like I'll have this and it'll like pacify me for a little bit.
I think that's part of it, but also, when your body is totally broken and you're a mile 80 of a 100 miler and just like everything sucks, um, your body is just your body is going to tell you like what it wants. So I've had times where I've like rolled into an aid station and I tell my crew, I'm like, I really want lemonade, like right now. Or, typically it's Coca Cola because I think it's the carbonation that I like.
Yeah,
Or I've had times where I've said to my crew, I'm like, I really want like avocado. I know it's like it's
interesting.
funny because it's like kind of like have like pregnant women generally have like specific
Yeah,
cravings. Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of like that. I just like
yeah,
to get dialed on something that I like really need or want for whatever reason.
yeah. Interesting. And so I know a lot of people too. Like they don't actually like the gels, or they don't do well with the gels. Like, do you ever do actual like real or even processed foods during your races besides
Uh,
avocado?
Generally, no. If I'm going to do a race that is, I've done a 200-mile race before in the mountains, and in those races, I'm running slow enough that I can eat real food. So, like, I can eat quesadillas, eggs, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But in a race where I'm pushing the entire time and it's hot, no, it's like truly just like gels
Yeah.
primarily is my deal. I know it's
Um,
pretty gross.
yeah. Uh, what, what is like the stopping look like too? Cause I mean, you have to stop to do something in the middle of those races, right? How long are you stopping for 100-mile race?
I haven't looked at the stop time from this race a week and a half ago, but it's as the sport is getting more and more competitive in ultra running, really where the delta is is really important in the turnaround time in aid stations. So, like
Mhm.
you said, you have to stop. Like, I need to get refills. I need to fill up bottles. I have to fill up my pack. Um, if in this race with extreme heat, I had to like cool as well and like get ice. And so those are all factors of additional time that it takes to optimize the aid stations. So I think I probably the first half of the race, I was stopping no more than a minute.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes like 45 seconds. There were some aid stations that I maybe took a little bit longer, maybe upwards to 2 minutes. But yeah, it's the sport is like really becoming like a Formula One type,
Yeah.
experience at aid stations, and that's why crew are also really important. Because I've also ran races where I run into an aid station and I have to like self serve myself, and not only am I like tired, but then I'm like, okay, where's the electrolyte? Okay, and then I don't know what I want to eat, and I'm looking at the spread on the table, and I'm like, I can't make a decision. And sometimes it's easier to just have like my crew. I like walk in, I have one thing, which is like to drink this bottle. Meanwhile, my crew is shoving gels into my belt or into my shorts, and they're switching out my vest, and they're putting like that is truly like the level of specificity and intensity of like a turnaround time at an aid station that is required at a race where every minute counts. Um, so yeah, hopefully that paints more of like color around like how much intensity there is.
Yeah.
Also,
Cause
just to like a funny story from this race was that like cooling was really important, and there was like a really fun video and photo of me at an aid station where my coach, um, they like got this kiddie pool and it was like full of ice and
I
water.
saw, yeah.
And they're like, okay, this is a critical moment, Ryan, for you to like cool your core. And so they like dunked me in this ice tank and then like poured ice on me for like 10 seconds. And then they lifted me up, put a new vest on me, and then like kicked me out the aid station. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Um, did that feel like it like sent you into shock at all? I feel like if I was that hot, like I do cold plunges and stuff, but
Mhm.
I feel like when you're that ramped up, like it could be detrimental or scary even. No?
No, actually,
You feel
if
good?
anything, it is truly like one of the most critical elements, I would say, from performance is the cooling strategy when I'm running in like extreme heat. To like add color to this, I this race like topped 100 degrees that day, and the pretty much the entire race I was either like wet from cooling strategies, or I had an ice bandana on me and or in my arm sleeves and or in my hat. And the entire day I never felt like hot or like overwhelmed from the heat despite running in the heat. Like I could feel the heat on me, um, but I never felt overheated, which is like pretty crazy that those cooling strategies like really make a difference.
Yeah. Cause even like the Boston Marathon 2 years ago now,
Hmm.
like I think it was like 67 out, and which was like
Hmm.
hot for that marathon.
Hmm.
And like I know someone that ended up with like 108-degree hyperthermia. Like
Whoa, crazy.
nearly died because it was just so hot out. And then when I did my half, it was like 65, and we were in the sun a lot. And like I was running harder than I had ever run. It was a race day, but like I was like on the brink of like I think I might be getting heat stroke. So, but yeah, I was curious about that. So those two things, so like just a wrap around your neck
Yeah.
with like a cold pack basically, and like a ice
Yeah.
helmet or
Like in the
ice hat.
back.
Yeah.
Well, just like
Yeah.
ice in my general hat.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and I think like the other key is just like, as long as like you're wet, because it's essentially simulating like, we sweat to cool ourselves. And if
Yeah.
I can have all my clothing wet, that's going to like accelerate that process.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm just like constantly getting wet. And that when I ran Boston 2 years ago in 20, or I guess it was last year, not this year's Boston Marathon. And it was hot. And I remember at aid stations, I was just grabbing cups of water, and instead of I was also dousing myself for that reason too. And I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people realize that, how important that is.
Yeah. Um, when you're doing these races too, how hard is it to like self-regulate your pace
Mm.
because it's such a long race?
I feel like this is an interesting question right now in my sport, and perhaps debatable, and something that I think I'm still exploring for myself as an athlete, because when it comes to racing 100 miles, like I'm known for being like the steady Eddie. I'm like a very consistent racer. I'm always strong at the end of 100 milers, because I know I've like done these so many times that I know what to expect. And I think what's new for me is experimenting with like pushing paces earlier on, knowing that there's inherent risk to that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that's required now to win these races, and like I did objectively well this last week. I got seventh place, top 10 is considered podium at this race. So like I'm happy with that objectively, but the the top three, they really push the pace earlier on, which isn't like my natural instinct. My natural instinct is to like push, pull back pace a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an interesting question. I don't have like a right answer right now, because I think I'm still exploring that. But I think as ultra running evolves and is becoming more and more competitive, it's going to require people to push at higher effort levels earlier on, and then it's like a game of like attrition, like who can actually like hold
Mm.
on longer. Because that
Yeah.
actually is what happened in my race. I was like farther back in the field earlier on, but some of these guys just like really hammered way too early, and then like by mile 50 I was like passing them, and I was like, bye.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like you see all these people running past you. It's like if you just know objectively, like I remember when I did my race, it was like I knew I could run. Like I had ran a 7 minute mile at mile 10 of one of my training runs, and
Mhm.
then but like I could never do that up front. Like my first couple mile, like I think my first mile would be like 9:30. My second mile would be like 9. I'd get to 8:30. Like I'd take 30 seconds off the clock every mile,
Mm.
kind of all the way down. But I like for my race, I just kind of looked at like I saw people flying by me, and I was like, well, I'm looking at my heart rate data and my pacing, and I'm just gonna stick to what I have been doing and training, and go with that plan instead of trying to
Yeah.
outrace these people.
Well, that's where I think, going back to my earlier comment about like you need to know yourself really well in ultra running. Uh,
Yeah.
like I know my body and I know my effort level so well that you were treating me this spring when I was trying to qualify for this race that I was just talking about. I flew out to California to race to get my entry into this 100 miler, and at the beginning of the race, my legs on the first, we like climbed like mile 10, we went up our first climb, and I was like, oh my gosh, my legs are trashed, and I have another 50 miles to run. Like, how's the day gonna shake out? Like, how am I supposed to like perform when this happens? So I like pull back, because I know my body and I trust it, and I know that I'm going to see these racers later on. So I made that intentional decision to like pull back, because I know my effort levels. And then once I like my legs kind of came back and recovered, Then I hammered the last 30 miles of that race. And that's when I just like picked off everyone, and like moved up the field again, similar to like what happened a week and a half ago. So, there's value in knowing yourself and being able to do that. But I also didn't win the race. So, I think there's trade-offs there.
So what was like your average pace for this race per mile?
I don't know. I think it was like 8:30, 8:45.
Holy shit.
And for context, the race has about 21,000 feet of descent and 17,000 feet of climbing. So,
Okay.
give you some context. Yeah.
But in 100-mile heat, that's still very freaking fast for. So what was your total time, and like how far off were you from first place?
My time was a little over an hour from first place, and my time was just under 16 hours.
Wow. Okay. That's so that dude's pace was that's fast. Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So he was running like a sub 8 mile. He had to have been.
Yeah, it was. Well, no, he was slower than that because my PR in the 100 mile is 12:59, and I think that's like a 7:30, 7:20 average.
Wow.
So
Okay.
he was probably around a little over 8, maybe.
Well, still that's crazy. What is there anything you like fear when it comes into like running a race like this? I know we had talked before that we were talking about the heat, and then you had been training out in New England through like the winter, and I was like, I'm going to run this race in the desert at 100 degrees and dry air probably. So like, are there things you worry about happening with your body, or anything you've had happen that is, bad?
I mean, to the last part of your question, I've experienced pretty much anything that can happen in a 100 mile, from literally shitting like, like for hours. So GI distress, from vomit to injury to just like anything you can imagine I've experienced. And to the first part of your question, like about fear, my philosophy is like I feel like fear is actually quite damaging to performance because if you fear something, when that actually happens, I think it compromises performance. And I think this is actually a big mental training side of my running that I've worked on the past couple of years, is that I think, when I first got into the sport, I used to like want to avoid the bad things from happening. I was like, oh no, I hope that my stomach's okay. Or like, oh no, I hope that, it's not that hot. But like now I'm like, bring it on. Like, if that happens, I've already walked through my head it happening. So it's, number one, it's not a surprise. And two, when it does happen, I know how to problem solve it because I didn't push it away. Like I actually, embrace it. Because I feel like with a 100 mile race, you should kind of approach it as like, these things are going to happen, not that they're not going to happen. And I think that makes me such a better competitor because, in this race I did a week and a half ago, I had a fall, I rolled my ankle, I had a GI distress, and like all of those things I've experienced before. And so I knew how to like handle it in the moment. And I think that's why that's why I didn't drop out. And I think that's why I still had a good day. It's because I was able to work through those things. And I think that's the difference between someone who has like a really good experience and welcomes challenges versus someone who like pushes them away.
Yeah, I would say even from my own coach's perspective, like those that aren't in fear of something bad happening or whatever, like you can tell with this sport, like if someone's scared of the lift or not. Hands down.
Exactly.
And those people that have anxiety about getting hurt or something happening, or just like everything needs to go this way, and if it doesn't, it's going to fall apart. And you see it in their training, you see it in the meet. Sometimes it flips on them, and they'll be like that in training. But it's like, oh my god, like I had a bad day. We're 3 weeks out now. My whole training is screwed, and like I'm going to do bad on meet day. It's like, no, you're not. Meet day is a whole different day. So it's just it's interesting to see that, and then I think just accepting accepting those things are going to happen and how you roll with them, and like seeing the people I've coached and compete over the years, the ones that can, you know, have something bad happen or not optimal happen, and just like, okay, like on to the next part of it, like let's go, are the ones that do the best.
Yeah.
And the other part there I was thinking of is like, what pieces of the puzzle do you think are going into like your body wants to shut down at some point, right? Like, what are you doing there?
This is again an evolution, I think, that I'm still learning. But I want to share an example from this race that I did a week and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I did it for the first time. And I think this will add some color to why or how I think about this. And I was at mile 80 of the 100 miles, and I'm trying to get top 10 in this race. Top 10 is like considered the podium. And I'm in 10th place at this point, and I'm getting chased down by 11th place. And I cross this river, and after the river is like this 2 mile climb up this road. And at this point, my legs are like trashed, my quads are like ripped apart. And I start like power hiking up the hill initially. And my coach at the time, she was like, "Ryan, what are you doing?" And I like kind of threw me off guard. And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Ryan, every other elite runner ran up this hill. Like, now is the time for you to go to the well. This is what you prepared for. This is why you've trained. You can trust." And she was like, "You can trust yourself. Do it. Now is the time to do it." And it was like a huge, like, number one slap in the face, but also a wake up call that I need to trust my body, that it can actually continue to dig deeper, even when I feel like it doesn't have that capacity. And Brett, it was like the craziest thing. I was like, okay, I'm committing right now. I committed to running. I ran that whole hill. And then the next 20 miles, I got one of my pacers. A pacer is like someone who runs with you in these races. And my pacer was like, okay, we're in hunting mode now. And I like moved up the field into 7th place by the finish line. And just at mile 80, I was like, I don't know if I can, really find the additional gear. So I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was a combination of, you know, mental fortitude, which is kind of an underlying theme of our conversation. But I think it's also that, maybe you have some parallels in lifting here, but you've done the work. We know we've done the work. We know our body's capable of it. And then it's just trusting yourself to do it. And I think sometimes that's like a really big leap for people, is like to actually go there and trust it and know that your body's not going to fail you. Sometimes it does, but when it doesn't, it's pretty amazing to see like what can happen. And I think that was I needed to experience that in that race. And it's something I'm really trying to replicate in a lot of my racing now. Like, my coach is like, "Ryan, this is the commit point. You're committing, and you're committing full send here. And despite whatever happens, like, you're committing, and you're extracting everything out of you at this point." So it's really a trust relationship I'm having with my body right now, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then did you do anything special? Like we talked about, like the climatizing to that training environment, or how did that end up going for you? Because that was like your big thing you had discussed with me.
Yeah, I think two things. I two things. One is race course training specificity, specifically around vertical climbing, so like hills essentially. And then two would be heat adaptation. The adaptation thing is like so fascinating to me, and I'll be curious if you find that interesting. But um, one observation I had in my training this spring is that I flew to New Zealand to do this race in February, and on paper, I had like all the tools to be successful there. I was like super fast, training went well. But what happened in the race was that I was objectively fit, but I hadn't done enough race course specificity around intervals uphill. That was my Achilles heel in that race. And in that race, whenever I got to like a steep climb, I just felt like I didn't have gas and like people would pass me on the uphills. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I need to like double down on my uphill training for this race coming up. And so, yeah, I just like prioritized vert pretty much for every run. Like I don't run roads. Like it was every day we're like running uphill, we're doing hills, we're building the muscular integrity around running trail every day. So that was huge. And then the second one was heat training. Starting in early May until the end of June, I've been doing a heat training protocol in a sauna where, there's different degrees of like how frequently I do it during that 2-month period. But essentially, it's just sitting in a sauna after a run from 20 to 45, 60 minutes. And it's crazy the adaptations that come from that. Number one, yeah, my sweat, sodium concentration becomes less, i.e., I retain more sodium, i.e., electrolytes, which makes it more efficient. I sweat quicker and more frequently, so my sweat rate goes up. So that means that I'm a more efficient sweater. My body is like adapted to be more efficient. Yeah, go ahead.
So your sweat output of like total volume goes up, but the sodium concentration in that sweat goes down?
Yeah. Interesting, huh?
Yeah, very interesting.
And I've done a sweat concentration test where I test the sodium concentration in my sweat, and the delta is massive. For me personally, I think for other people it's very individualized, but for me, it drops significantly. So those two things are important, and then the heat perception is an obvious one, the my perception of heat, and then it actually increases blood plasma as well during the heat training.
Yeah, and that will change how you can utilize oxygen and everything too. So
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, pretty wild, huh?
Yeah. Well, we had talked about, I was like, maybe like there's hot works and stuff now that you go in a sauna and ride a bike. Like that would have been something interesting to see too, to actually, because there is probably a difference too of training under an extreme demand while currently, hot, versus. It's interesting to hear you did it like, so would you like finish a run and like go right into the sauna without eating, drinking, anything?
I mean, I wasn't religious about it. I mean, if I could make it work, I would do it. But sometimes it was like later in the day.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty soon after my run, I would try to go sauna. So that's like passive strategy. There's also like active heat training where I don't really subscribe to this. I don't think it's as effective in my opinion. But some people will like wear 5 layers of sweats and go for a run, or they like hotbox themselves and like run on a treadmill. And I think you can achieve the same outcome that way, but I think it comes at the expense of like you're working your body in a way that it doesn't need to be worked. And
Yeah, I can talk to my friend and verify this, but I have a friend that worked for the military. Actually, Danielle Day, she was on the podcast. I believe it was her that she worked in the military doing climatization research on exercise adaptations at different climates and atmospheres and everything. And I'm pretty sure the trash bag does not help with any of that, because it's also, if we think about it, if you're training at altitude or at a higher humidity concentration, the air you're breathing is physically different, right?
Yep.
It's either harder to breathe, easier to breathe, whatever. If you put on a bag to stimulate heat training, but you're breathing in cold air, say, at a lower humidity, it's like your lungs are processing things different. So it's not going to be the same. And then too, the other part is you're probably just depleting your body of the electrolytes, water. You're making your training harder and limiting your recovery for your next run, which I'd rather have a better run.
Yes, exactly. Like it comes with negative side effects that you wouldn't necessarily want, to your point. So yeah, I would agree.
And then what things do you do to fuel up like pre-race? Like, are you doing like a traditional carbo loading cycle? Like what do you do?
I feel like I used to obsess about this a bit, and now I just like really try to, um, be a normal person about it. I think people can obsess about like, oh, my diet, and and like while that is important, it is important, but I think people can like over engineer it all. And so my approach to fueling before a race is like, yeah, I'm eating carbs, but I'm just trying to eat like simple carbs. So my favorite thing before the night before a race is I do like rice, sweet potato, and like chicken and or salmon. Pretty simple. And also, I don't know, I can't cite research on this, but our bodies only have so much capacity to store carbohydrates and glycogen. And once you fill up that reserve, it just gets converted into glucose in the bloodstream and then gets like filtered out of the system anyway. So that's why I've always been curious about carbo loading is like, once you reach your body's maximum absorption rate, like doesn't it just get wasted anyway? So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it either goes to glycogen, we excrete it, or it can turn to fat too. Because we're
Yeah,
just
so
in a
that's why I'm
caloric surplus. Which my thing, what's interesting about it is like one of our big things is, in any coach's world, it's like don't change everything crazy leading up to your competition or race.
mm,
And then it's like in running, it's like okay, let's change our whole diet and like 4x the amount of carbohydrates we're having. Like I tried to do it and I did do it, but I had to eat like 600 grams of carbs a day or something. I'm used to eating like 200.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's a
And
lot of food.
I felt like shit. And like race day, like I did well, but I felt like heavy. I felt bloated. I was like, ugh. I ended up like not even meeting what I was supposed to. I think I got to like 400. I was like, okay, this is plenty. Where
Yeah,
I
like you don't need
feel
to
like,
stir the pot to like to invite risk, right?
yeah. And I feel like if I just kept everything normal to what my body was used to and I had been training that way anyways, I would have been better off.
Yeah.
But like that's the biggest mistake I see people make. It's like, I'm gonna try this new pre-workout or this new energy drink like 2 hours before I compete. It's like, no, dude, don't do that. Or in
Yeah.
our thing too, it's like everyone eats pretty healthy. They're making weight. It's like all rice, chicken, whatever, mixed vegetables. And then on meat day, it's like let's pound Sour Patch Kids and Oreos and all these like sugary processed things. It's like, yeah, come the second event, you're going to be trash and you're going to feel sick. And most of them do when they decide to go that route.
Yeah.
So those are always interesting.
I don't know if you've done any podcasts with people who have talked about the gut microbiome, but
Yes.
it seems like this is like the centerpiece for performance, the centerpiece for health, the centerpiece for immune system, the centerpiece for like overall well-being. And like imagine your gut biome being introduced to like new foods and food groups and degrees of that the day before the race. It's not going to be happy. And also it hasn't like adjusted itself to the enzymes that need to like break down certain things effectively. So yeah, I think you're spot on in the sense of like keep it simple, but also like do things that your body's familiar with because that's what it's optimized for. You know?
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you do anything like on like the functional health realm, which is functional health is basically centered around gut health? Like anything you do there, like do you take any like digestive enzymes or probiotics and stuff because you're going to be consuming basically just sugar all day?
That is a question I have not really fully explored, I would say, and probably something I need to, just based on what I just said, how important it is. How I've interpreted that question is that I eat a really well balanced diet. I do drink various, you know, probiotic like items and variety in my diet. Love kombucha. And I do take supplements, but I also don't try to like over engineer it. I like keep it pretty simple. So I have like this um, sport or athlete specific supplement that I take. Um, but no, it's something haven't really explored a lot. And honestly, how I viewed the gut biome is more about adapting it to accommodate the total carnage of crap you're going to put into your gut on race day, which is an issue I see with a lot of my athletes. I have this athlete who he does not fuel well in training. Like he doesn't really eat a lot. He might eat real food sometimes, but he doesn't like a lot of the things. But then come race day, he shows up to a 100 miler, and then halfway through, he's like, I can't eat anything. And it's like, yeah, because you haven't like adapted yourself to fuel with these things in training. So that's kind of how I view it, is more of like, probably not in like the good way, but like training your gut biome and you training your gut for like the crappy shit of like sport nutrition so that it's actually used to it on race day. So that's kind of how I kind of interpret it right now. But I definitely need to do it for my lifestyle too, outside of
Yeah,
racing.
I'd be curious to put you in touch with some of my functional medicine people to see if there's something you could do to like, yeah, just help process that sugar. And like, do most people, because the other thing too is this just a you thing that like you have the gut dysfunction? I feel like a lot of ultra runners experience this.
Oh, it's so common. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I had gut issues on this last race, but sometimes I don't even know why it's happening. Like,
Yeah, it's like,
I've
is it
ran 100-mile races
hormonal?
where it's, yeah.
So,
Is it environmental? Is it something I ate? Is it the heat?
yeah,
Like what are it's probably a combination of all things. And so it's really hard to answer that question.
yeah. And then I got two more questions for you here. Um, do you use like any type of fitness app tracker? Like, are you tracking your HRV? Are you tracking sleep, all that with like a fitness wearable at all?
The sleep tracking is something new for me as of like a few months ago. I have a Aura Ring.
Yeah.
I tried Whoop. I thought it was fine. But not so much that I need the data. It's just more of it's a nice like accountability partner for me because I know when I need sleep. Like we all know that we like feel it intrinsically, but it's just like nice to justify how I feel with data. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I use it. I find it interesting too. What else do I track? I have a training log that measures like overall fatigue and stress on my body in training peaks. And then other than that, it's just like a lot of like subjective measurements on like how I feel too that my coach and I work on. But other than that, I don't really track anything else. I don't
Yeah.
track my diet. That's probably hard for people to hear. Like I don't track things, but I do kind of obsess about protein a little bit. I feel like that's probably like one of the most. I'm like really afraid of like stress fractures. I've never had one, but a lot of my peers get them, and so I kind of like intentionally overeat and like prioritize protein, knowing that I'm like kind of covering my bases there.
Would you what would you say you eat for calories on like a daily basis? Because how you're doing like you typically average like 120 miles a week or so in training.
Yeah, I would say that's like my peak training is 120 with like 20K or would
Yeah.
probably be like a peak week for me. But average, I would say like is a 100-mile week maybe.
Uh,
I don't know. It's so hard. I don't think I've ever tracked like
Ever.
concretely. So
Okay.
I don't know. But I would imagine 4,500. I don't know.
That's probably
Like
that's
this is
probably
like totally me. This is totally me spitballing. I like have no idea.
you should do it just to see where you're at. Like
Yeah.
I don't love tracking, but I think it's good to know where you are. And like I find a lot of people are very far off from where they think they are. And it's
Mm.
like, especially when you add in like, for a lot of people underreport, and studies show people underreport their caloric intake by about 25%. So it's like the butter, the condiments, the toppings, all that stuff adds up pretty quick. The peanut butter,
Yeah.
like, when you put peanut butter on a scale, you're like, that's it. And it's like, yeah, that's like 400 calories if you just do, 2 scoops of peanut butter. So it's just interesting to see where you would actually be at if you might even be under of what you think you are. So, and like, I always do it once in a while, like maybe once a month as like a check-in to be like, oh, and then I'll plan out like my whole day to be like, okay, roughly I need this much protein, or I need to have, I'll kind of make the foundation of like, all right now for these calories, I need my dinner to have 8 ounces of a protein, 5 ounces of a carb, a cup of vegetables, whatever it might be, right? Just so you have a ballpark. Might help a little bit.
I think I will do that. I'm curious.
Just like a quick reality check to be like, oh, yeah, that's not where I am anymore. So,
yeah. Okay. I like that.
And then, what's your favorite running shoe?
I laugh at this question. I used to have a shoe sponsor a couple years ago, and I left them to have a clothing sponsor, and because of that, it means that I'm like kind of a free agent when it comes to shoes, and I've really enjoyed that because I've tried at all like so many brands and models, and I've like tried them all, and my summary of like this journey with shoes is that like all shoes like now with technology are all like pretty fine. Like most shoes are just like good or great, like fine, but there's seldom ones that are like amazing that like I can't get enough of. um there's a shoe that I'm really liking right now. It's like this cool small indie brand called Norda. They only make trail shoes. I did a collaboration with them for this race just a week and a half ago, and I thought their shoe is like pretty awesome.
It's called
And what
Norda,
else?
Norda.
Norda, yeah. So I think they're out of Quebec, I believe. And then La Sportiva, they're a climbing brand and also make shoes. They just launched a new shoe a year ago called the La Sportiva Prodigio Pro, and that shoe is also really great. I ran in that shoe in my qualifying race in April, and it's like I feel so confident in it going downhill in like technical terrain, like no flinch at all. So it's like a very confident shoe that I love.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoes are always an interesting topic for many people.
But they're so individual. Like everyone's like, "What
Yeah.
shoe do you want, Brett? What shoe do you want, Ryan?" I'm like, you literally just like have to try them on and run in them. There's like no better way because like
The research, like shoe research is all independent too. Everyone always asks what's the best shoe. The literature literally shows that the best shoe is the one that feels the most comfortable on you.
yeah,
Like all the stuff about motion control and arch support and this and that, it's all kind of, it's theory, but it doesn't necessarily match up. And my
yeah.
thing is
All
just
our
like,
feet are so different, right? And so each shoe is going to feel different naturally. So
yeah. And
um,
yeah, it's just I always find just like shoes now are becoming more and more narrow, where I think there is something to having a wide toe box, which is something I need because I have a fat foot.
if you like a wide toe box, you might like Topo.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Anthony told me about those.
Yeah, Topo, and then obviously Ultra has wide toe boxes too.
Yeah, I was gonna look at the ultras. My girlfriend has those. But anyways, man, anything else you wanted to add to tell the people? Would you, as I was joking about in the beginning, would you encourage people to run a 100-mile plus ultramarathon?
Yes, but I have some caveats to that.
What are they?
So a 100-mile race is no easy feat mentally, physically. It takes so much preparation in order to show up with confidence and to be successful at it. But I view ultra running as like this overall timeline of like adventuring, and there's so many more approachable ways to enter the sport, and then you can like continue to move up in distance if you want to make the party even longer, so to speak. So, one thing I love, and I do this for training runs because my training runs are often 30 plus miles, but entry level ultra running distances are 50Ks. And so if you can run a marathon, I think most people would have the fitness to do a 50K because it's just an additional 5 miles. I think that's a great entry point into trail running. And typically what happens is like people do that, they build some confidence, and then they do a 50 miler, and then they do a 100K, and then do a 100 miler. So if that's something that's interesting to you, I definitely encourage like building up in terms of distance, because as the distance goes up, also comes like the more problems that you would potentially experience in a race. And I think you just need experience in order to feel like confident. But also, I don't know anything either. You should just sign up for a 100 miler and like rip the Band-Aid off and see what happens, and then send me a message and say, Ryan.
I do. No.
I'm just joking. Don't do that. But you can do that if you want. You're probably going to walk a lot, and it's not going to be fun.
You're probably going to break bones if you did that. So,
yeah.
Like physiological adaptation to stress and that stuff needs to happen. So, anyways, let's not get anyone hurt from the podcast.
Don't listen to me. Listen to the first part of my answer.
Also, last question. How'd you get your teeth so white?
Oh, I don't know. I just brush my teeth normally.
Oh, no, nothing special there. No.
Just I have an Oral-B electric toothbrush and Sensodyne toothpaste. That's all I do.
Oh, okay. Good for you. He's if anyone's watching, he's got a great, or not watching, Ryan has the most pearly whites there. So, anyways, man, thanks for coming on. If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
You can definitely follow my journey on Instagram. That's where I post most of my running content and bits about my personal life. And my handle is just at ultra.ryan.
Cool. No website or anything?
No, just my Instagram.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you for coming on, my friend. And are we going to see you back in the clinic soon? When are you coming back here?
Yeah, I come back right after Labor Day, so in September.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully we see you then.
Yeah, thanks, Brett.
All right, take care, man.
84% of you that listen to this podcast frequently do not hit the follow button. If you've enjoyed any of these episodes, could you do us a favor and hit the follow button, leave a rating, and maybe leave us a review? It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. If you'd like to know more about training in person or online with Brett's Gym, Architect Fitness, please follow us on social at ARKITECT Fitness on Instagram, or visit ARKITECTFitness.com. Or if you want to rehab with barbell therapy online or in person, check out @barbell.therapy or visit barbelltherapyandperformance.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen.